Good evening, everyone. This is Congressman Karen Handel. I'm so excited to be with you this evening for another one of our telephone town hall meetings. These are just really terrific opportunities because obviously my top responsibility here is to be sure that I can most appropriately reflect the views and priorities of the people of the 6th District. And so these calls are a really terrific way for me to hear from a lot of you in the district, get your input, and answer your questions. And for questions, press star 3 at any time if you want to get in the queue to ask your question. I'm going to start with a legislative update, and then once we're finished with that, we'll go right into the Q&A. And again, it's press star 3 at any time to get in line to ask your question. Before I go into the legislative update, just a couple of things to be sure that you have our contact information. The D.C. office number is 202-225-4501. The district office number is 770-998-0049. You can email the office directly. It is a special email so that it gets into our system so that we can answer you quickly. It's GA06KH I as in industry, M as in Mary, A as in Apple, at mail.house.gov. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/Rep Karen Handel. Twitter is twitter.com/Rep K Handel. And you can always visit the website at handel.house.gov to stay up to date. And if you haven't yet, do sign up for our weekly online newsletter. We send that out every Friday afternoon to keep you up to date on things. So today was a big day, a truly historic day, where the House of Representatives took its vote on tax reform, the most sweeping tax cuts and jobs bill to come through the House of Representatives in over 3 decades. I was an enthusiastic yes for that bill. It is so important. It's going to very much drive economic growth and cut taxes for the overwhelming majority of Americans and their companies. Think about this. On average, the typical family of 4 earning the median national family income of $73,000 will see a tax cut of $2,059 under this plan. The bill also doubles standard deductions, making the first $24,000 filed by a married couple tax-free, and for individuals and singles, that's $12,700 tax-free for them. The child tax credit was doubled from $1,000 to $2,000 per child. And in our 6th district, we already, in the 6th district, over 40,000 people take the child tax credit. And even more are going to be able to do so under the tax bill because the eligibility threshold raises that income threshold level up to $400,000. And consider that the child tax credit is a credit, not a deduction. So that means that this is money that goes into your pocket, whether you itemize your taxes or you don't. For small businesses, this is also a really important bill with important tax cuts for our small businesses, our mainstream businesses, where for the first time ever, these companies will be able to take a 20% tax deduction and apply that to the first $315,000 of joint income. And for large corporations, we'll see the rate lowering to 21%. What does all of this mean for you? It means more money in your pocket. It means an economy that is going to grow at a much greater clip. And if you want to learn more about the tax plan, you can visit fairandsimple.gop. The second thing I'd like to talk with you about is another bill that I was particularly proud to be a part of, and it was called the Taylor Force Act. Earlier this month, I was cast a vote in support of the Taylor Force Act. And for those of you who might not know Taylor's backstory, Taylor's story, Taylor Force was a West Point graduate. He served tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan. And he went on from there to pursue his MBA at Vanderbilt over in Nashville, Tennessee. Tragically, however, while visiting Israel as a grad student in March of 2016, Taylor was killed in a stabbing attack by a Palestinian terrorist. Today, 20 months after Taylor's tragic death, the Palestinian Authority continues to pay a monthly pension to the family of Taylor's murderer through the Palestinian Martyrs Fund. That is quite simply unacceptable, and all of us should be outraged by this. So by continuing to send hundreds of millions of dollars to the Palestinian Authority, we have essentially been subsidizing that Martyrs Fund and thereby condoning the PA's support of the murder of Americans and Israelis and the citizens of our other allies. This practice has to end, and that's exactly what the Taylor Force Act does. It will stop this outrageous practice by ensuring that U.S. taxpayer dollars cannot go to entities that are supporting those types of funds. Lastly, before we get into the Q&A, I want to leave as much time as I possibly can. We will do another Coffee with Karen. We did one already last month, and we'll do that on Saturday, January 20th. You'll need to make the reservations ahead of time on a first-come, first-served basis, and we'll be setting up 10-minute personal interviews with people during that time, and we'll do that for about 2 hours, so watch for that to come out. Also, make sure you sign up for the newsletter. You can do that at our website at handle.mail.gov. And if you want to ask a question, make sure that you press *3. And with that, Wes, who's our first question?
All right, Congresswoman, thank you so much for the update. Before we get into live Q&A, I just want to remind any of y'all on the call to press *3 at any time if you'd like to get on the line with Karen. That's *3 if you'd like to get on the line. Our first question tonight is coming from Jerry Shull in Marietta. Jerry, you're on the line with Congresswoman Karen Handel. Go ahead.
Hi, Jerry.
Hello. Yeah, my question is, will Medicare be impacted by this tax bill?
No, sir, it does not.
So the Americans for Tax Fairness said it'd be impacted in 2018 by $81 billion in reductions. That's not true.
There are no provisions that affect Medicare in this tax bill.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jerry, for the question. Next, we had a question from Liz come in earlier today. Liz is asking, Karen, what are you doing to ensure that CHIP is fully funded before the year's end?
We will actually vote on the bill to reauthorize CHIP hopefully tomorrow. It's part of the continuing resolution, and I've been a supporter of the reauthorization of CHIP. We voted on it earlier, so it's important that we get that done before we leave for the end of the year.
Great. The next question we had come in earlier today as well as from George. George asked, after Kate's family's brutal murder and acquittal, what is happening with Kate's law and illegal immigration deportation enforcement? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the Department of Justice and ICE, they continue to be very aggressive in illegal immigration and deportation enforcement. Obviously, the decision in the court was very disappointing, and I think it left all of us
Hi, this is
really
Congressman
feeling
Karen Handel, calling to invite you to join me on a live telephone call meeting starting in just a few minutes.
Right now, the case law passed.
During the call, I'll give a brief legislative update, and you'll have a chance to ask
in the
questions,
House of
or you can just
Representatives,
listen
and
in.
unfortunately,
Again,
it
please
is
stay on
still
the line
awaiting
to join the
action
live
in the
conference
Senate.
call. This is Karen Handel, your 6th District Congressman, at 202.
All right, thank you, Congresswoman. The last question out of this group that came in earlier today for now is from Shannon. And Shannon asked, did you, Congresswoman, have the time to take the time to read the tax bill before your vote?
Please note that this call may be
We
monitored,
received
recorded, or
a
rebroadcast.
roughly 600-page detailed summary, section by section, summary of the bill, and yes, I worked my way through
Will
it.
be ridiculous. I know the Access Live event
All right,
operator has been
you're going to go
notified
to
that you wish to
Blake.
ask a
Blake
question.
has a question
That
about
interest
the tax
remains
bill. Blake, you're on the line with Congressman Handel. Go ahead.
All of the brackets
Hi.
you are in
I'm
higher,
Dunwoody. I'm
moving up the
26 years
bracket
old.
chain,
I
every
was
single
wondering how are
income
you gonna
level,
lower my taxes?
the tax rate for the
So the tax bill, I don't think it has much to do with your age. It has to do with your income. So your standard deduction is going to be doubled if you are single. That standard deduction is going to go up to nearly $12,000. So that first $12,000 of your income will be reduced. I don't know if you are in school and you have student loans, but that interest remains deductible. And all of the brackets, if you are in a higher, moving up the bracket chain, every single income level, the tax rate for those income levels has been lowered.
All right, thank you, Blake. Next up, we have Cliff in Roswell. Cliff, you're on the line with Congresswoman Karen Handel. Go ahead.
Yes, hello, Karen. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very good. I want to thank you for your service, both as our Secretary of State and as our Congresswoman. Congratulations on that. I really wanted to communicate to you my priorities, which I believe are priorities of a lot of my friends. The first is we've got to reduce spending. We've got to stop the bleeding that's going on so that we don't pass on so much debt to our children. I know there are certain strategic advantages to spending more than you have, but this cannot keep going on. And it would be my request to you as my Congresswoman to please do what you can to reduce spending. Now, that doesn't mean just not proposing bills, but it actually means going out there and let's find stuff that we don't need to be doing, that the national government does not need to be doing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I concur with you 100%. In fact, a group of us have been working on a debt reduction task force. In fact, that was being led by another Georgian Congressman, Doug Collins, and with a very big focus on that. Back to tax reform, one of the reasons that tax reform is important is because it is going to get this economy growing at a much faster rate. And when that happens, it lets us deal with the very real problems on the spending side in a much more effective way, in a less dire way. But one of the things that I would like to see us do is, one, I'm a very strong proponent of a balanced budget amendment that has all kinds of hurdles and as a process because, as you know, it would require a constitutional amendment. But frankly, I don't understand why we can't, as a House, have a rule that says we are going to have a balanced budget. What would happen on the Senate side, I don't know. But I would like to see us move to that regular order with our budget and move towards balanced budget. I also strongly support having zero-based budgeting on a rolling basis, say every 5 to 7 years, for every single department and agency. Because as we do that, that will let us drill down program by program to start to make the kind of cuts that we need. One more suggestion is that any program that maybe has been authorized through previous legislation but has not received funding in a budget in 5 years, then it should be wiped off the books. Because then we can make sure that these programs, if they're not going to need to take a look at how we are also going to reform our various, they take a look at how we are also going to reform our various is that for that child tax credit. One of the things that I'm very pleased about in the tax bill is that for that child tax credit, for the first time, in order to receive it, the Social Security number of that child has to be provided. Why is that important? Because it is going to cut down on fraud, and it is going to generate over $1 billion in cost savings. That's the estimate. So thank you very much for reminding all of us that it's important to grow the economy and to give tax relief to Americans, but it is also very important that we make sure that we reduce spending and then begin to tackle this very real debt that is crippling our country.
All right, thank you, Cliff, for the question, and Congresswoman for the answer. Just want to remind y'all that you're on the line with Congresswoman Karen Handel. If you'd like to get on the line to speak with her and ask your question, please press *3 at any time during the call. Again, that's *3. Next, we're going to move over to Alice Lewis and Marietta. Alice, you're on the line with Congresswoman Karen Handel. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Congressman. I appreciate you taking my call. You have addressed this earlier, but I just want to emphasize how important it is to fund the CHIPS program. I've been calling my senator every day and trying to encourage them to do this. we've got to look out for the children.
Absolutely. I could not agree more, and I'm very pleased that we'll be able to vote on that tomorrow and be sure that it is fully authorized and fully refunded or fully funded going forward. One of the things, there has sometimes been a little misinformation in the press, and I know the timing of the reauthorization gave people a little bit of angst, but for all of us who were following the bill closely, we knew that there was a little bit of a time frame that we had to do the reauthorization. So know that everyone was very, very mindful of ensuring that the programs at the state level were not put in any type of real financial trouble, and that's why we'll make sure we get that done before the end of the year.
All right, thank you. Next, we're going to move to Zora and Johns Creek. Zora, you're on the line with Congresswoman. Go ahead.
Hi, Congresswoman. Thank you for taking my question. My comment is regarding to the tax bill, and everything that I've been hearing kind of talks about the typical family, 2 children. I have 5 children, and they are pretty much at entering college age. So my concern.
Ooh, all 5 of your children are about to go to college?
Well, 3. So I've got 2 who are still going to be home, but one already there and 4 about there. So my concern has been that my children are aging out of the child tax credit, and while we were always able to take the personal exemption while they were, still in college because they're dependent. So my question is just, is the changes that are being made between the standard deduction and the child tax credit, is that going to be able to compensate for what we are going to lose in being able to take the personal exemptions for our adult age children?
Well, obviously, I don't know all of the details of your specific financial circumstances. What I can tell you is that the overwhelming majority of families are going to have tax relief in this bill, including yours, I believe. And one of the reasons, first of all, in the 6th district, the alternative minimum tax impacts the 6th district at twice the national average. So that getting additional relief there, they're expanding the exemption for those earning, it's going to go up to $1 million. So if your household income is $1 million, you will be exempt from paying the alternative minimum tax. So when you put that in with the lower rate, plus the other aspects of the bill, I feel pretty sure to say that I'm pretty sure you'll see relief as well. Your accountant needs to look at it, and I would have them do it, but this is going to give relief to the overwhelming majority of families. Oh, and also remember that that this bill does keep the current education credits and student loan provisions.
All right, Zora, thank you for the question. We're moving through some calls pretty quickly here. Just want to remind y'all, if you want to get on the line to ask Karen a question, please press *3. And if you would like to get on the line with an operator to sign up for our email newsletter, you can also press *0 at any time. So with that, we're going to move to Steve Diffley in Marietta. Steve, you're on the line with Congresswoman Karen Handel. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for taking my call. I was inquiring to ask, there's a lot of publicity and a lot of mouth about the investigation of right-wing groups, so-called right-wing hate groups, by the not only the federal government, by certain other private organizations. Do we have any organizations within the government that are investigating these alternative left violent groups?
Yes, the answer to that is yes. So we had individuals before the Judiciary Committee in the last month. Judiciary oversees Department of Justice, FBI, and indeed, any organization that meets the definition of a terrorist organization does get reviewed. That's true, including Antifa. It has been one of them that they've looked at. So it's not just the groups that you might read about in the press, but there are a lot of people at work on that. That's the most that I can say about it.
All right, thank you, Steve, for the question. Next, we are going to move on to Susan Small in Atlanta. Susan, you're on the line with Karen. Go ahead.
Let's ask about TIP, but you have addressed that, and I appreciate it. But you keep talking about how very, very much this tax bill is going to cause the economy to grow. My understanding is the last two times that this attempt to make the economy grow by giving more money to the rich didn't work very well, and I keep hearing every day reports from economists and economic groups indicating that they don't believe this is really going to make the economy grow very much. So I'm wondering what makes you think it will.
Well, because there are equal number, if not more numbers of economists and economic organizations that have said this is indeed going to grow the economy. According to the Tax Foundation, there will be at least a 1.7% growth and over 10,000 new jobs created in Georgia, and that's just from one organization that has looked at it. But I would also say that in the years following the last big tax cut that took place in this country, which was under Ronald Reagan, some 14 million new jobs were created. That's economic growth, and we have to do something to help this economy get going at a much greater clip. We have seen the weakest recovery post a recession that has taken place in over 40, 50 years. So we cannot continue to limp along the way that we are. We have too many companies that, rather than wanting to bring their income, their profits back to the United States, they keep them in other countries and invest there instead of investing in our country, which means investing in Americans. So that's what this bill is designed to do, and I have great confidence that we're going to see very positive things from this bill. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Susan. Next up, we have Bunny Rice and Marietta. Bunny, you're on the line with Congresswoman Karen Handel. Go ahead. Bunny, are you there?
Whose administration did our taxpayer dollars begin to fund Palestinian support groups? I don't know the exact name to call it, but where they pay the victims.
That's not through the United States. Here's how that... Are you talking about the Taylor Force Act, ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah. So I believe that money is fungible. So when the United States gives aid, foreign aid, U.S. aid, to the Palestinian Authority, and then the Palestinian Authority, that helps its budget, right?
Right.
So we give money to the Palestinian Authority, that helps their budget. And the amount that we give to the Palestinian Authority is about 10% of its annual budget. Then the Palestinian Authority looks at its budget, and they take 10% of their budget, or their 300, I forget the exact number, over into this Martyrs Fund. So they are essentially using our money to subsidize this Martyrs Fund. And that's got to stop. I'm not sure for how long it's been going on. We've been doing aid to the Palestinian Authority for some time. But when they are going to take U.S. tax dollars and move those over and let our dollars subsidize a fund that is going to pay a stipend to the family of a terrorist that killed Americans like Taylor Force, I'm not going to be able to be supportive of that. And I am absolutely 100% thrilled that we were able to pass this bill.
All right, thank you, Sonny, and thank you, Congresswoman. Next up, we have Sonny Gregory and Marietta. Sonny, you're on the line. Go ahead.
Yes, Karen, I would like to know if this affects our tax bill coming up for 2018, or are we having to wait till later for this? As far as the deductions go, you said $12,000 of income would be not a write-off, but a tax, basically, that we won't have coming out of our pocket.
That's right. So this tax bill, the provisions in the tax bill are effective January 1, 2018. So that means for individuals working in 2018, it will change their withholdings, which means that you will have more money in your pocket starting with your paychecks in 2018.
All right, thank you, Congresswoman. Next, we're going to move on to Jerry and Dunwoody. Jerry, you're on the line with Congresswoman Karen Handel. Go ahead.
I want to thank you so much for this phone call. I really appreciate it. Unfortunately, the call came after you gave your review, so I've missed all of that. And if
That's okay. What would you like to know about?
Okay. I wanted to know your position on DACA for the Dreamers. I don't know if you covered that at all, but I was just curious how you feel about that and bringing that back.
I fully expect that there will be some legislation in the first part of next year involving the DACA permit holders. What that will look like at this point, I am not sure. I can tell you what I can be supportive of, and that is permanent status for those who have DACA permits. There won't be a reinstitution of the actual program itself because it has been deemed to be unconstitutional by the courts. So those individuals who already have their permit, and I believe they are still individuals who meet the qualifications, are able to apply for a permit. I think it's up until March, but it's on the website at the, if you just Google DACA, you'll be able to find that. And I'm sure all of the immigration organizations and immigration groups, they are tracking all of that. But we'll have something come, and probably, I don't know if it'll probably be first quarter of next year.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Next up is Bob in Dunwoody. Bob, you're on the line. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Congresswoman. I basically have two questions. I'm a small business owner, under 5 employees, and I'm curious on the tax bill changes, how that's going to impact my business. And the second prong of this question is, I was trying to do additional benefits for my employees by trying to offer them health care this year, and it ate up any profit I had, any growth money coming in, plus some, and the coverages weren't really good that I was able to get. Plus, then the next part was, on the independent market, there really is no plans for them to really choose that have good coverage.
Right. So first, for small businesses, there is probably some of the most robust relief that has taken place in quite a number of years. So for the first time ever, if you have joint income of $315,000 or less, you will have a first ever 20% tax deduction that applies to that first $315,000 of joint income. And that's for businesses organized as S-Corps, partnerships, LLCs, and sole proprietorship. So for Main Street job creators like you, that's going to be some significant relief. If the income level is above that, the bill would generally provide a deduction for somewhere up to 20% on the business profit, while reducing that effective marginal rate to no more than 29.6. So it should be very, very good for you in your business. As far as insurance goes, it's clear that Congress will have to come back and take up health insurance again next year, and I fully expect that will happen. Within the tax bill, the individual insurance mandate has been repealed. It is my hope that doing that we will start to see perhaps a little bit more of some market competition around some of these plans as we start to really move the insurance market back to being market-driven instead of bureaucrat-driven.
All right, thank you. Next, we're going to move on to Russ and Marietta. Before we do that, I just want to remind anyone on the line who's still looking to ask a question to Congresswoman Handel, just please press star 3 at any time, and we'll get you on the queue and on the line just as quickly as we can. All right, Gus and Marietta, you're on the line. Go ahead.
Yes, good evening, Congresswoman Karen. I have a question here. What is the status of stopping the federal funding to these sanctuary cities? And I'd like to add, it seems that any bill that the Republicans have the Democrats vote against it. It appears that most of the Democrats can't make decisions for themselves, and they must be told how to cast their votes by Chuck Schumer and Ms. Pelosi. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that and about the sanctuary cities.
Great. Thank you for that question. Voting for a bill that would have no sanctuary cities and would actually make that, I think it was called the No Sanctuary for Criminals Act. That was one of the first bills that I got to vote on June 29th when I first came here. Unfortunately, that bill as well is sitting in the Senate for action. I hope that they will move expeditiously on that bill. It is a hyper-partisan environment here in Washington right now and in Congress, which is really unfortunate. And I will tell you, even on things like several people have asked about the CHIP reauthorization, inexplicably, in committee, Democrats voted against reauthorizing CHIP. And so I, as a new person here, I kind of have a hard time wrapping my brain around some of those things. But that's the way it is right now, and it's unfortunate. One of the things that makes it a little bit tougher on the Republican side is that Republicans don't march lockstep. There is a lot of discussion, a lot of debate. Individuals really do vote their mind and their conscience and their district, where on the Democrat side, what is really disappointing is that when their leadership on the Democrat side says this is how the body will vote, typically, in all the cases since I've been here, Democrats never break rank with that, and that doesn't happen on the Republican side, and I think that's just part of really just the bigger perspective within the GOP and a lot of different points.
All right. Next, we're going to move to Ann and Roswell. Ann, you're on the line with Karen. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Congressman, and appreciate you holding this conference and letting me ask my question. Yesterday, there was an article in the AJC that said Home Depot was in the process of buying back stock, and Delta was selling their outdated fleet of planes and buying new planes from overseas. I support the corporate tax cut and the intention, but how is Congress going to monitor and make sure that the corporations are spending the money to increase employee wages and production here at home?
Well, I don't believe it's the federal government's role to dictate to corporate America how they will or will not run their company and spend their dollars. With that said, I do believe that what will happen is that companies are going to reinvest in their infrastructure. In talking with another large company based in Georgia that is in the retail industry, their CEO has said very specifically that they are looking forward to investing in their employees and helping to really grow their footprint in the United States. And also back on Delta, I believe that the Delta CEO made a very strong statement, and I'll be happy to find it if you want to give our office a call tomorrow, a very strong statement about their intention to invest in their employees.
All right, thank you, Ann, for the question. Next, we're going to move to Donald in Atlanta, who's been on the line for quite some time. Donald, you're on with Congresswoman Karen Handel. Go ahead.
Hi, Congresswoman. We have met at RJC meetings.
Hey, Donald, how are you?
Great, and I'm proud to have had a nice big sign in my yard for you when you were running for office.
Thank you very much.
And I've had conversations with Ms. Piscato, who works in your office in Roswell, who's a fine, wonderful woman who follows up. She's great. Now, my question has to do with Social Security benefits. I don't think it's fair that my wife passed away about a year and a half ago. And what Social Security did is they paid me $255, and that's it. And they kept 40 years of payments. Now, I know the way it's set up, I believe in Congress, they call it there is a pension. we counted on that money, and it was part of our, mutual wills that we had, that we would keep the assets of the other person, whoever died. And I think that law has to be changed so that the surviving partner is entitled to the payments. I mean, you live together for 40 years, and you invest together and do everything together. The funeral cost $20,000 time we got done, and $255 all I got. So any savings that we had went right out the window. I don't think it's fair, and I'd like to see the Social Security law changed.
Oh, well, first of all, please know I'm so sorry for your loss. I cannot imagine 40 years with the love of one's life and then trying to figure out how to make it work after. My husband and I just had our 25th wedding anniversary last month, and I cannot imagine my world without him. On your Social Security issue, let me take a look at that and see what could potentially be done there. And you have my word, I'll take a look at that.
I would appreciate it. And it worked for everybody. I mean, it would be great for all the senior citizens that are, for example, you have different taxes and home taxes and everything that you got to pay, and that extra money coming in that went away, and, it's just not fair.
Well, I can tell you that we are going to be looking at all of the various programs, whether Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, food stamps, all of those things. And so I'll put this on the radar screen and see what potentially could be done there.
Thank you so much for the question, Donald. Next, we're going to move to Jenny and Marietta. Jenny, you're on the line with Congresswoman. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. Hi, Congresswoman Handel.
Hi, Jenny. How are you?
Hi, I'm okay, although I'll tell you I'm vexed, because here we are in the season of Christmas, and for me and my family, we celebrate Christmas, as I believe you do too, when we're looking at a time of joy and hope. And when I look at what's happening right now, I have concerns for guns. I don't see anything happening to make my family and my children safer where we are. I'm concerned for the health, particularly the mental health of the Chief Executive of the United States. And then, most specifically, I'm concerned about discrimination that's happening in the name of the religion that I love. I'm concerned when I hear you say that your faith calls you to speak out against people who are lesbian, people who are gay, folks who are different. And I'd really love to hear you address any or all of those, because I want the chance to support you. You are not the candidate I voted for, nor the candidate I worked for, but you are one of my 3 voices in Congress, and I would so like to support you and hear that you have my interests at heart. Could you give me something to make me feel hopeful about my representative during this season of Christmas?
So first of all, you grossly are twisting words that I have said. What I have said is that my faith calls me to a different viewpoint on gay marriage. And with that said, my faith also calls me to be compassionate and empathetic. And I work very hard at doing that in my job and in my everyday life. So I just take exception with how you are interpreting and describing what I've said, because if you pull it, that's not what I've said. On national instant background checks, we have already moved in Congress to tighten that up, because there's clearly a problem there where the individual who was the shooter in Texas, that individual should have been in the mixed background database, and he was not, and that's because the Air Force failed to do its job in entering that information. And so we want to make sure that that is all done properly, and that's why we passed this bill, and I am keeping my fingers crossed that the Senate will act expeditiously on that, because it is imperative that those individuals who are convicted felons and are legally prohibited from possessing or purchasing a firearm, that they be in that database and not be followed through, because that is the protection those of us who are legally authorized and allowed to own a firearm. So thank you so much for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to clarify whatever misinformation was floating out there. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Jenny. Next, we're going to move to Louise in Roswell. Louise, you're on the line with Karen Handel. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Congresswoman, I'm so proud that you're my congresswoman. I voted for you. Yes. Yeah, I'm a senior citizen. I'm 74 years old. I'm single. My income is between $34,000 and $38,000 a year. And last year I paid $448 in income tax. Will my taxes this coming year, for the 2017 year, be affected by the new tax bill?
Your taxes for this year, so your tax return that you'll file in 2018 will not be affected because all the provisions go into effect on January 1st, 2018. But you should see the benefits come through there. And remember that over 65, there's an expanded standard deduction for those over 65 as well. So as you move through 2018, you should see relief.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we're going to move to Stephanie in Atlanta. Stephanie, you're on the line. Go ahead.
Hi. I have a question, but it was actually asked earlier, and I thought of another question.
Okay.
So this is going to be a hard one, but, when all those women were standing up against some of the men in Senate, representatives that were harassing them sexually, so forth, did you stand up with all the other women to stand for them, or were you silent?
I actually was busy doing my job to try to reform the culture here in the House of Representatives. Lots of people like to stand up in front of the press scrum and talk about all the things they want to do and might do. Meanwhile, I really try to be a doer. So I went to work, and I have actually been working with the House Committee and Chairman Greg Harper on a piece of legislation that will be introduced, I'm hopeful, tomorrow, but certainly within the next 2 weeks, that will completely reform the process here in the House of Representatives so that, number one, we have greater transparency so that we don't have these secret settlements, and number two, to have a fairer process, especially for women, because I believe that everyone, male or female, if they feel aggrieved, that there should be a process and a fair process for them to work through. So thank you so much for the chance to address that.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next up, we have Karen in Roswell. Karen, you're on the line. Go ahead.
Hello. Congratulations, Karen, for your election, and we look forward to many good years of your service. I have a question regarding Medicare and Social Security. Paul Ryan mentioned, and you also mentioned, that the Social Security and the Medicare plans would be looked at. Now, my main concern is that, my existence, my plan for spending in my retirement years is based on including Social Security, so I don't want anything to tamper with that. Okay.
I think you can rest easy that anyone who is already in or nearing retirement, that's obviously not something that is going to be touched at all. We have to look at the out years, the go forward years for younger individuals. So rest easy there.
Okay, thank you so much, Karen.
You're welcome.
Now, the other question that I have for you is that what about Medicare? Is that going to get affected in the thinking processes that are going to go on?
It's hard to know what you mean by, quote, affected. What we want to make sure is that we are, one, making sure that we're clamping down on any of the fraud that may run through there. We want to make sure that drug prices, all of those things. So we want to make sure that everyone who currently relies on Medicare has appropriate access at prices that they can afford. So, and again, it's going to be looking forward, not existing. That's how my understanding of where we're going to be on things.
Yeah. Basically, my thinking was that I didn't want the any plan changes? Because right now I've got my Medicare supplement plan in place, and I have a choice to go and see any doctor as I choose. I don't want all those things to suddenly become changed and get into a kind of HMO.
I don't foresee. I don't have the crystal ball, but I don't foresee things changing for those people who are already in the system.
All right,
and that's historically been how it's been handled. I want to make to the previous caller one more point on the sexual harassment issue, that within the tax bill, the other thing that we addressed was, and unbeknownst to a lot of us, I sure didn't know this, that if an individual had to pay out a sexual harassment claim, they actually got to take that amount as a deduction on their taxes. That is not going to be allowed going forward. No more tax deductions for sexual harassment settlements.
All right, thank you, Congresswoman. Next on the line, we have Derek in Dunwoody. Derek, you're on the line with Karen Handel. Go ahead.
Thank you, Congressman Handel, for taking our call. We truly appreciate it. I had two questions, one pretty personal and one general. The personal question is, I have a son who is a junior in college right now and is looking at going to graduate school. I had heard in the tax bill that they would be taxing scholarships given to graduate students and treating that as cash, and you'd have to pay the full taxes on that. Do you know where that eventually, if that got worked out in the final bill?
That is not in the final bill.
Outstanding. Good.
Nope, not in there.
Okay, good. And then the more general question, somebody had mentioned it earlier, but we're all Americans and we're all parts of this district here, and it is still very divided. I was wondering what you or the administration was going to do to help kind of bring people together. I saw a stat that 80+% of Americans feel we're going in the wrong direction, and that's despite a strong economy. What can we do, and what can you do in particular to bring people together and kind of stop this division that we all think we have in this country?
I try to do my best to take the time to be present in the community and to be sure that I'm conducting myself in a truly civil way. As a freshman class here in Congress, we have, I guess I'll call it a civility agreement, that we really do try to take the extra steps to work with one another, whether it be Republicans or Democrats. And, to do things like this takes the time to hear the viewpoints of others. But I will say this, it's a two-way street, Derek. Just this past weekend, we had a wonderful event at a charity in Roswell where we were bringing in things for homeless women and their children. And, that's a time, I think one of the other callers talked about the spirit of the season, that we should be about the spirit of the season and not yelling at one another. And unfortunately, that did happen. And, my job is to try to lead by example, and that's what I can do. I can control my actions and my deeds, and those are the people who work for my team. And I'm proud to say that these are all really fine people who work for the team, and we just all have to remember that being good communicators and bipartisanship, it's bipartisanship, so that means it has to go both ways.
All right, thank you so much for the question. Just want to remind y'all that you're on the line with Congresswoman Karen Handel. Unfortunately, we only have time for one more question tonight, but if y'all will hang on the line afterward, we'll make sure to get your question recorded and answer just as quickly as possible. So our last call tonight is going to come from John in Johns Creek. John, you're on the line with Congresswoman Handel. Go ahead.
Hello, Congresswoman Handel.
Hey,
such a pleasure.
Just call me Karen. That's works.
Right. Karen,
here
we
to
still
say.
have a sign in our garage. We're waiting for 4 more years. We'll put it back out there again.
Thank you.
My question deals with some of the topics that have been covered before as far as seniors are concerned. Each year, because the fact that the income we live on is taxed, it seems as though our taxes go through the roof. And I was wondering, is it going to be based on brackets or the fact that we're senior citizens that we could see a tax decrease or increase?
So if you're over 65, there's an expanded exemption, but and on the brackets, it is brackets, but all of the rates for the brackets have been lowered. And if you go to www.fairandsimple.gop, it will have all of the brackets listed out there so that you can see where you fall, but every single income bracket level has gone down. So regardless of where you fall on it, you should be able to see relief. And if you're over 65, I believe that additional exemption is around, I think it's about $11,000.
Okay.
I'm sorry, $1,100 additional over that $12,000 and $24,000 standard.
All right. One other thing. Would you repeat that website?
Yes, www.fairandsimple.gop.
Fairandsimple.gop.
That's it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you for taking our call and question.
You bet. And I want to thank everybody who took the time to be with us this evening. This was a great opportunity for me, again, to hear from you and hear some of the concerns for you, and especially on things like being able to have people work together, all the questions on taxes, to be able to talk about the various things that we're working on up here in Washington. And I wanted to just close out with encouraging everyone once again to sign up for our email updates, and you can do that on our website at handle.house.gov, www.handle.house.gov. And don't forget, Handel is Handel. And you can always call us in the district office at 770-998-0049, or here in the Washington office at 202-225-4501. And once again, that tax reform website is fairandsimple.gop. Thanks everyone again for the really tremendous and rare opportunity that you've given me to serve you. I take it seriously, and I look forward to doing another town hall in the next couple of weeks. Happy Hanukkah. I guess we're just wrapping up there. And Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope the holiday season is filled with warmth and a lot of family fellowship. And here's to a 2018 that will be a truly terrific one for everyone. Thank you so much. The Access Live event has ended. Thank you for taking